So the current deal we're on that I'm going to show you is a 48 unit, 2-property portfolio. I'm about to pull up the offering memorandum. Some of you have probably already started just checking in with real estate agents or brokers or just shopping on CREXI or LoopNet, or another on website you can look up apartment complexes on. When you find something that you think would be a good property, you ask the broker to send you the OM, the offering memorandum, that's what they call it, and the T12s. The T12s are the last year's financials for the property. Your goal is to buy a business. These are operating businesses. So any business is bought, its value is off of what it earns, off the net operating income, the NOI. And these are terms you're going to hear. So I'm going to share screen real quick and just start with this here. Let me get it to the top. So being that this was a 2-property portfolio, and this is in Ankeny, Iowa, it's right outside of Des Moines. It's a little suburb, very posh. So it's ending up to be a pretty great, fast growing, high appreciating area. The 2-property portfolio, so there are 2 OMs. So this one is called Linden Apartments. It's a 32 unit. And then the other OM I'm not going to open. That's a 16 unit called Chapel Apartments. But really their name is called Linden Residence 1 and 2. That's what the current owner has. So these 3 buildings right here, they're like long ramblers. There's apartments on the front and the back. And then this is pretty decent cement driveway with this nice little courtyard in the middle. Most of our tenants are an older demographic because they can park right outside their front door. As you go through the OM, it kind of gives you little descriptions on what you're about to see. But I want to take you to first, the executive summary. So the offering price, how many units, the cap rate. Have you guys been learning about cap rates? Okay.
Yeah,
so
we have.
All the cap rates out there are starting to get very compressed. When you go to take educational courses, guys, they're going to try and teach you how to find things on an 8 cap. You can't find barely anything on an 8 cap unless you go into a inner city, rough, typical kind of, or half, a war zone they call it, or a like half vacant property. So just keep in mind, cap rates are pretty compressed and it's hard to make a profit. You really got to find the value adds. So there's going to be things on here that are accurate, and then there's going to be things in here that are like a dream for the broker that they put in here that you're like, what? This doesn't pencil out. So these are all 1 bedrooms. And here for the offering for this property, it was $2,050,000 and we got it for $2 million. All right, they'll tell you about the taxes. They'll tell you about the year it's built. We try not to go pretty much under anything older than 1965. We try to avoid. We'd love to avoid the 70s, anything earlier than 78 because of the lead paint stuff, but we are Class C workforce housing people. We choose to buy properties that are older for workforce housing, where most of the rents are between $600 and $850. That's what we choose to do. We just throw away the OMs that come to us that are for like $1,500 or $1,200 a month. We just like to cater to that type of community because that is our goal, is to build community. When you guys take courses, and again, highly suggest taking courses, they will teach you what types of things you don't want to have in those properties, like aluminum wiring or galvanized plumbing, because every $5 you spend can turn into a lot bigger cost in the long run. So this is called the rent roll, and they might have it initially in the OM, or you may have to request it. It's what the rent is in the market, what the typical rent for a 1-bedroom, 1-bath is. Can you guys still hear me? Okay.
Yeah, it froze for a second there, but you're back now.
Okay. And we had a storm today, and so every now and again things go a little weird. Even earlier, just so you know, tell me if it locks up and I'll switch to like my phone's Wi-Fi.
Okay.
Okay, so in here, you cannot trust that this rent roll is accurate. You have to get an actual one from the property manager through the broker, but they like to give you a little bit of that information. They'll give you the rental income. Again, you have to verify it. You have to ask for this T12, which I'll pull up in a second. The pro forma is kind of the dream the broker thinks you can get, and it's often not accurate. So everything has to be verified yourself or from a partner that you trust can really, actually do the work. Additional income, just so you know, that means things like pet rent, laundry, any other services you might offer a tenant. Sometimes, have you guys heard of RUBS? Okay, yeah, like utility bill backs.
Yeah, it might be helpful to just explain it real quick.
Sure. So not everywhere, but when a market is starting to, there's housing shortages. So when a market is starting to have high occupancy, some complexes will start to implement RUBS, which is basically a bill back of things like water, electricity, gas. They'll do a portion back to the tenant. Sometimes they can get actually what they're spending, but usually it's just a little bit under what the actual owner is the cost for the owner. So for us in our market, we are not at the point where the property is located that we can do RUBS, because if the neighboring apartments aren't doing it, it's pretty hard to get people in your place if the neighbor next door doesn't have to pay it, because it's usually about an extra $60 to $80 a month for the tenant. Now there are water meters that you can attach. There's little sub meters, and you might find out about this. You might even be able to do this if you're paying water at one of your duplexes or triplex or quads. There's a little contraption that you can buy that clamps onto the water pipe, and it can measure the water that's going through. And then either you can bill back to the tenant, or even sometimes the water company can bill your tenants individually. So even if you have everything coming into one, you can still separate. So just so you know. So that we're going to do, but we're going to do it in year 2. The thing for water for us to reduce our prices right away is we're bringing in a water conservation equipment. We're having a team come in and put that in month 2 to cut our water bill in half right away. So that's a value add play. Insurance, just so you guys know, has gone, it's a ridiculous right now. Insurance is super expensive, a lot more than it ever used to be. And when you take education, they may kind of give you one idea, but it's think double. Just think double. It's pretty crazy right now. Some places you can't even get insurance. So like Florida, if you're looking at places right by the ocean, you might not even be able to get insurance. Management, depending on your number of units, like you guys know with single families, duplexes, you're paying like 10%. Once you get to about 50 units, well, even like 24 units, it'll come down maybe at 8%. You get around 50, you can do about 5%. You go 7,500 units, 3% for your management fees. It kind of depends on if you have employees on the property. Our 48 unit has no employees. Our property manager is charging us 8%, which we normally would never accept, except he's including a lot of the things they would normally charge us separately in that 8%. So it's actually a pretty good deal for us. And he's high tech. He's a franchise of a national chain, and we love him. Utilities, like we're saying, can be billed back. Taxes, this is a huge one. When you guys go into a market, you cannot assume the taxes are what you even see on the tax statement. You have to call and find out what's called the millage rate. And when you buy the property, your taxes will go up because they are finding out that there's a sale. So know that your taxes will always go up. Our taxes are going up $19,000. So that's a pretty big chunk to factor into our underwriting. Our county is also doing a reassessment this year, not because we're purchasing a property, but the whole county is reassessing all the properties because they haven't done one in a long time. So even the broker forewarned us, hey, there's going to be a 19% increase in your taxes besides your purchasing and the value going up. So it was pretty big chunk to put in our underwriting. Snow removal, lawn care. A lot of times people forget to put that in. So depending on where you're buying your property, don't forget snow removal. That's usually more expensive than mowing. Maintenance, repairs. When you take an educational course and they give you what I'm about to show you, an underwriting template, they will have what are called rule of thumb. Rule of thumb, ROT. They will show you, like here you see $350 a door. They will tell you, if you don't know what it is, they will tell you, put in $350 a door into your underwriting just to help you what's typical, like on a typical apartment, $350 per door to factor in your underwriting. Supplies, that can be anything from office supplies to paint. Every owner is going to keep track of stuff differently. And it's a lot of questioning of the broker. So like supplies, we'd go back and go, are those office supplies? Are those supplies for repairing things? You have to go ask. So there's a lot of talking back and forth with a broker, way more than buying, a small multifamily. Professional fees are typically something like accounting, legal, etc. Okay, so then they show you a map, kind of where it's located. You want to make sure that it's in a good location. We have a lot of schools around. We have a huge manufacturing facility, which employs a ton of people. So we are right next door to that. And here's a downtown brand new district. That's about half a mile away. That's fantastic. Great location. There it is. They just zoom in a little. So here's what our property is looking like. I'll kind of move this over. Very long, very simple. The roofs are done. The siding's done. The only thing on the exterior we have to deal with is some of the HVAC is older, and we had to factor in, we would have liked to factor in 50% of the HVAC being replaced, but I'll show you, we could only do 25 to meet the returns the investors wanted. So there'll be some play you have to do. You can't always remodel a whole property. You may want to, it needs it. You might be embarrassed to rent out one of those apartments because the carpet's so gross, but sometimes you just can't because the numbers don't work. Plus the next owner will like having a little bit of value add coming in. You'll hear people say, leave a little meat on the bone. That's the term in this world with it. Okay, so here we are. We got the classics, nice yellow sinks, yellow countertops. This is a really nice unit. It doesn't look like that inside most of them. We're redoing most of the insides. I just want to mention comps. Everything you do, the lender, your investors, they're all going to look at comps. They're not necessarily going to look at these. They're going to do their own due diligence. So be aware that what you see here sometimes isn't a good comp. Like our properties are single level. This one's 3 levels, 2 levels. The comps are not great because people desire this a lot more, and we can get a higher rent than necessarily somebody on a 3rd floor of an apartment who has to trek up and down. So you still have to go do your own due diligence on comps, but at least it starts you out with ideas. You want to know about the economy in the area. Investors are going to drill you with questions about, employment, population, household income. They want to know that the people can afford to live there and that, eventually rents can increase. A little bit more about the household, the population, demographic, and then you just have your broker information. All right, I'm going to switch screens to go to our T12, which is in, so, oops, it's right here. So the T12 comes from the broker along with the rent roll, usually at the same time, and you have to request it. They can come looking many different ways. And if you're lucky, they'll come in an Excel spreadsheet. So you can go in and manipulate them because you will need to draw information from them. Okay, So, of course, they'll have the rental income, and your goal is to look for inconsistencies, problems. You're trying to find big number gaps, and then you're going to ask why. Like here, there's an $18,000 July income, and all of a sudden there's a $21,000 August income. That's a pretty big difference. What happened there? That's like 4 or 5 units. They're only $625 a month, maybe even more. Application fee, you just want to see what kind of fees they charge now, because you're going to have a lot of the same tenants. So you're just checking to see the differences between your property manager, what you want, what they want. Processing fee, again, you're going to be like, what is that? Is that people that are having difficulty, or is that just like month to month people? Because there's going to be some paperwork with that. Sheriff fee, that'd be concerning. How big are those numbers? Is the sheriff coming all the time? Is this not really a Class C? Is this more of a Class D property? So of course this is the COVID year, so keep that in mind. Not too bad though. What do we have? I can't see my total. $188 for sheriff fees. That's not.
Do you mind me asking what they're charging for?
What do you mean, the sheriff fee?
Yeah, I don't understand. What would a sheriff be?
Must be either they're charging their cost to call them, or the sheriff literally might have to do some paperwork for the processing of whatever that their paperwork that they've filed on the tenant. That's my guess.
Okay.
Yeah. And feel free to stop me at any point, okay, as we do this. So deposit forfeit. So when people move out, get their deposit back. This seller only had $465 deposits. The rent is $625, so he had a reduced deposit. So that was helpful to get him tenants in right away. And you might want to think about that as you're coming out of your single families and duplexes. Like even us, we still charge 1 month's rent. In the multifamily, you want to keep your occupancy high. So there's a lot of apartment operators will reduce the deposit so they can get those filled faster. And now there's even new programs coming out that you can do where a tenant can pay to a company monthly, kind of for deposit insurance, it's called. There's many ideas. So then laundry income. Sometimes you may be leasing the washers and dryers. At this property, we own them. So there's laundry income. We don't have an expense going out. Lockout fee. Apparently the owner charged a fee every time the property manager had to drive over and unlock their door. Cleaning and maintenance, pretty basic. When you take educational courses, you will learn there are different names for different classifications in underwriting, like contract services is typically like your, could be your pest control, it could be your lawn mowing, it could be your snow removal. Certain things get kind of blocked into certain categories. So here they have a different line just called carpet cleaning. Normally that would just be straight under maintenance. That would just be listed under a category like maintenance. So landscaping, they really broke it out, very detailed. Property insurance, HVAC insurance. So here you would ask, oh, where's the contract on that? Where's the insurance policy? Why did you have that? Okay. Management fees, you just kind of check over, because when you go to do yours, like ours come to like 24,000 for the year, and the lender had about the same percentage that we did. So that all checks out. Our management's going to be less than theirs, because like we said, okay, painting, plumbing, repairs, basic stuff, payroll expenses, supplies, property tax, gas and electric. Typically gas and electric would be line items separately. Water, garbage, which is trash. Sometimes trash is considered a contract service. Bank fees, again, sometimes that's grouped into like administrative fees. And then we get down to the NOI. So right now, this property looks like it's losing money here, gaining money here, losing, gaining. And when we turn in these to our lender, once they take out the things they know that aren't typical, they're like, wow, this is a good cash flowing asset, so you're like, yeah, that's what we thought when we did our underwriting too, so just so you know, what you see isn't always what you get. And then there's ways you can improve this NOI. You look for inefficiencies. Like we found that this guy's paying $15,000 in trash and we can get it down to $6,000.